Daybreak came pale and clean. A generator thrummed steady while the crew moved in quiet loops, cables taped, sandbags set. A faux porch front propped against my garage like it had always been there. Then the HOA SUV rolled up. Meredith Klein stepped out in pressed slacks and a beige blazer, clipboard tight to her chest, smile already in place. She didn't greet me. She assessed the set like a defect. "That is an unapproved structure," she said, pen tapping the facade. "And this is commercial activity. Shut it down." Her voice carried that practiced certainty, the kind that assumes compliance will follow. Behind her, the guard watched, arms folded. The production manager started to answer. Meredith cut him off, still polite. "Save it for the hearing. It comes down now." Two men in maintenance polos walked past her with cordless drivers and a pry bar, heading for the temporary fence. I lifted my phone and kept my voice even. "Before you touch anything else, I need your names and who authorized you to enter my property." Meredith's smile narrowed. "Your lot is subject to the association. You don't get to decide. I let the silence do the work." Then I told the manager, "Document everything. Call studio counsel." A wall flat shifted, caught on a brace and went over. Wood splintered. Someone yelled, "That's rented equipment." I opened my folder. But let me back up. That house wasn't some impulse purchase I was trying to monetize. It was my dad's place, first same live oak out front, same concrete pad he poured himself. When he passed, I paid off what was left and kept it the way he kept it. Clean lines, trimmed hedges, no drama. To me it wasn't a unit in a community. It was a deed, a boundary, a legacy. I'm the kind of homeowner who reads the CC&Rs like a contract because that's what they are. I keep the survey plat in a folder with the title policy, and I know exactly where the drainage easement cuts the back corner. I'm not anti-neighbor. I wave, I help, I don't park on lawns. I'm anti-overreach. Meredith was the opposite flavor of calm, polished, procedural, always speaking in per our guidelines language. I'd heard she used to be a paralegal. Process was her religion. Right up until process slowed her down, our HOA ran on appearance-first enforcement. Warning letters, fine threats, and people folding. I didn't fold. I calculated the problem was, she mistook quiet preparation for easy surrender today. The location scout found me through a neighbor. He wasn't a kid with a phone. He had a binder, a measuring wheel, and a calm pitch. A 2-day exterior shoot, a temporary porch facade, and black scrim to block sightlines. No digging, no concrete. Everything comes off clean. I treated it like any other project. We set a location fee, a restoration deposit, and a clause that my landscaping gets photographed before a single case rolls in. Crew parking would be off-site with a shuttle. Trash in locked bins. No work before 7 a.m., no amplified sound after 9. I required one more thing, a certificate of insurance naming me as additional insured. They pulled the city film permit number, dates, and address printed in bold, plus temporary use approval. Fire marshal sign-off on generator spacing, and a clear fire lane and a decibel cap for the night scene. And I looped in the HOA anyway. Architectural request, site plan, temporary structure description, all emailed and sent certified. The manager replied, "We'll review at the next ARC meeting." Not a denial. Not yet. That was enough for me. In our CC&Rs, enforcement had steps. I made sure every step on my side was documented. I printed the email and tucked it behind my permit. Meredith's first move came that afternoon, delivered like a favor. A courtesy notice slid into my inbox with her signature block polished to a shine. Architectural Review Chair, Compliance Liaison. It cited temporary structures, commercial activity, and the familiar line about protecting property values. When she called, her tone was smooth, almost bored. "Mr. Harper, you can't run a business out of your driveway," she said, as if I'd set up a used car lot. "Have the crew remove everything before filming begins." I didn't debate on the phone. I answered once, in writing. I attached the city film permit, the insurance certificate naming me additional insured, the site plan showing every panel inside my lot lines, and the CC&R section on enforcement notice, hearing, then action. I highlighted it, not for drama, but for clarity. Her reply tightened. Now it was cease and desist, daily fines, and vague talk about the association's authority to abate non-compliant improvements. So I asked one question. Show me the board vote or the ARC denial in writing. She couldn't. There hadn't been a meeting. The shoot date kept approaching, and I could feel her impatience, hardening into something else. Something she intended to handle personally. By the time the crew vans started dropping people at the corner, everything was where it was supposed to be. Cones marked the no parking zone. The generator sat on plywood pads, fire lane clear. I walked the driveway with the assistant director, checking the scrim didn't touch the sidewalk, and the facade braces were sandbagged. Meredith arrived like she'd scheduled at HOA SUV, 2 maintenance guys with tools, and a private security guard I'd never seen before. She didn't look at the permit taped to my window. "Emergency compliance action," she said, and waved the workers forward. I stepped between them and my fence line and kept my phone up, recording. "You are trespassing," I said, loud enough for the sound guy's mic pack to catch. "You are interfering with a permitted activity. Leave my property." Her smile stayed thin, instructional. "Sir, you've been notified. Step aside." The crew went still. A grip backed away to protect a cart of rented lights. In the shuffle, a stand clipped the curb and snapped a bracket. One worker yanked a facade panel. The corner cracked. I didn't touch anyone. I called 911 for a trespass report, then called the production office. The clock was burning money, and everyone heard the liability click shut. Production shut down. The first assistant director checked his call sheet and looked at me with pure math. "We can't roll like this," he said. "Union won't allow it with an active dispute on the property." Crew started coiling cable without being told. The production manager spoke low while his phone buzzed. Crew day rates, equipment rentals by the hour, police detail already scheduled, catering already paid. Art would have to rebuild the cracked panel, and any delay pushed them into overtime. A down day is 6 figures, Nate. Before we even talk about damage, by noon my driveway was empty except for scuffed plywood and a broken bracket in the gravel. Meredith emailed at 12:17 p.m. Subject line, "Abatement completed." She wrote that the association had restored community standards and would invoice me for the work. I didn't argue. I sent a litigation hold notice to the HOA and to Meredith personally. Preserve emails, texts, vendor work orders, invoices, and any security footage. Then I requested the police incident number and, one more time, asked for the board vote authorizing entry. My attorney needed it, and the studio certainly did. 2 days later, I walked into the management office with a records request drafted under our state's HOA inspection statute. Certified copy checklist attached, board minutes, ARC decisions, violation logs, vendor work orders, invoices, and any communications about my address for the last 60 days. They couldn't misplace it without creating a new problem. What came back was the first real crack in Meredith's armor. The CC&Rs required notice and a hearing before any self-help abatement. There was no hearing notice, no sign-in sheet, no minutes. Just Meredith's email thread, her telling a landscaping vendor to send 2 men with tools and coding it to compliance. There was no board vote, no emergency declaration, and no approval, just her signature and certainty alone. Then I pulled my own footage. My doorbell camera caught her stepping past the property line after I revoked consent. The studio's behind-the-scenes camera caught her face when I said, clearly, "You are trespassing." Same moment, 2 angles, time-stamped. My attorney laid it out without heat. Trespass, conversion and property damage, tortious interference with contract and business expectancy. And if it was willful, exposure could climb fast. The quiet part was heavier. The studio's insurer and completion bond weren't absorbing a down day. They were coming for reimbursement. Aggressively. The studio didn't send a furious email. They sent a package. It arrived by overnight courier, 3 copies. 1 to the HOA's registered agent, 1 to the management company, 1 to Meredith at her home address. Inside were invoices and exhibits arranged like a claim file, crew time cards, equipment rental agreements, the police incident number, fire marshal sign-off, and the call sheet showing the exact hours lost. Each damaged item had a line: replacement cost, rental rate, serial number, photo. The demand letter was written in that clean, restrained tone you hear from people who bill by the 10th of an hour. It named the association, and it named Meredith Klein individually. One paragraph explained politely that intentional acts outside authorized governance may fall outside D&O coverage and general liability exclusions for expected or intended injury. Another paragraph gave a deadline: I stayed out of the spotlight. I verified dates, provided the time-stamped clips and the certified mail receipts. No speeches. The HOA's attorney tried to soften it. Misunderstanding. Temporary nuisance. Protecting standards. The studio's counsel answered with 3 questions. Show the denial, show the vote, show the emergency declaration. They didn't have any of it. Silence became the evidence alone. The next board meeting was standing room only. People who never showed up for elections came in golf shirts and reading glasses, whispering when Meredith walked in like she owned the agenda. She set a tidy stack of papers in front of her and smiled like this was routine. Took a seat in the second row, hands folded, letting everyone else fill the silence. The HOA attorney sat at the end of the table, jaw tight, checking his phone. Halfway through open comments, the door opened and a man in a plain suit asked, "Meredith Klein?" His voice cut clean through the room. He walked straight to her, confirmed her name, and handed her an envelope. The attorney went still. Meredith glanced down, and the color left her face enough to register. "You've been served," the man said. A neighbor behind me asked, sharp, "Did the board authorize you to enter his property?" Meredith answered carefully, technically without saying yes. The president cleared his throat and moved to suspend her committee authority pending investigation, citing procedural gaps like an apology. It didn't end with a screaming match. It ended the way these things usually do when real money and clean documentation show up: quiet, formal, and final. The studio's losses were paid based on what they could prove. Invoices, rental contracts, payroll, the down day. The HOA's insurer covered what it could, then started asking uncomfortable questions about scope of authority. Meredith's personal counsel negotiated hard, but the settlement language still landed like a verdict. She resigned from the ARC before the board could vote her out. The HOA adopted new procedures: no self-help abatement without counsel review, written board authorization, and a noticed hearing. Vendor access required a work order signed by the manager and 1 officer. Temporary filming and facade installs got a clear, written path because ambiguity was what she'd used as a weapon. I didn't gloat. I rebuilt the scuffed edges of the driveway, sent the reasonable neighbors a short thank you, and kept the rest private. That night I locked the binder, slid it into the drawer, and looked out at a clean, empty driveway. And the funny part is, 2 streets over, they'd already started a new fight, this time over a solar install, before they realized some people keep better records than they do.